Hey, record loving friends, this is Brian from Tokyo Record Style. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, Tokyo Record Style is a project that combines my passion for photography and for music and for writing. And basically, I stop people on the streets of Tokyo, where I've been living for the last 20 years, who are carrying record store bags from any of the 300 record shops that we have here in Tokyo, whether they be from the big chains like Tower Records or Disc Union, or from any of the independent shops like Ella Records or Flash Disc Ranch. And I basically spot them carrying these cool record store bags. I chat them up. I ask them if they scored some good records. I ask them if I can have a few words with them, take some photos of them. And we have some musical exchange and appreciation for each other and each other's music. And we get to learn about the human algorithm, what people are listening to on the streets of Tokyo. I go back and I catalog the records that they purchase and I write short stories about them. And it's a really interesting way to discover new music and people in your community. So today I'm going to share some of the stories that I've written for Tokyo Record Style, but this particular edition happens to be from a trip that I made to Osaka. So this is Osaka Record Style edition of Tokyo Record Style. But before I get into it, I wanted to talk a little bit about writing. I hear something that perturbs me online sometimes. People talk about a blank page. They talk about the fear of a blank page. They say things like when they're trying to write a book, there's nothing like that blank page staring back at you. They talk about this feeling of looking at a blank page with a great amount of trepidation and fear and bewilderment and wanting to procrastinate on, move on to something else because they don't want this blank page staring at them. But I, for whatever reason, welcome the blank page. The blank page is one of my favorite things to look at. And it's one of my favorite opportunities that comes in and out of my days. And I wanted to share one of the thoughts that I had about why I think that is. Now, as a kid, I was really encouraged to read a lot and write stories, and both my grandparents were noted journalists, and English and literature and being grammatically correct were very important values at my house. And so I was constantly in a state of having papers edited or evaluated by my parents, and it was a very literate house. And the schools that I went to, what they lacked in the art departments and creativity, they made up in math and English. So when I got to college, I took an English composition class in my first or second year, and I had a really great professor who really shifted my thinking about writing and about English and about composition. And I'm in a great deal of debt to her for helping me realize a bunch of things that I still use today in my writing. In my first few weeks or few months, she would often give us assignments where we were meant to write short stories or essays and then exchange them with our classmates and critique and give feedback to our fellow peers. And after I did this a couple of times, it became very evident to me quickly that the education that I got in my composition high school classes was a bit superior to what my classmates had received. And I was lamenting about this to my professor in private, saying, I'm kind of shocked that a lot of my fellow students don't seem to be able to write at the level that I think that they should be able to write it. And she said, well, wait a second now. Language is just a tool, she said. And she encouraged me to really think critically about the idea that the writer was conveying, and not so much about the syntax or grammatical correctness of what they were writing, and really to look deeper into what was being conveyed. Because language is just a tool for communication, and it evolves over time. And yes, there's a certain aspect of preserving language and, what makes our languages, but also to be open to new words and new ways of expression. And she really encouraged me to really lean into that, which I still do to this day. I often think about, this is Japan, I want to speak perfect Japanese, but I really can't because it's such a complicated language and I haven't applied myself to learn it better. But I don't really feel guilty about speaking the best Japanese that I can and mixing it with, body language or English, using what tools I have to the best of my ability to communicate and share with people. So that really shifted my thinking about language and about my level of writing and reading other people's, writing. So thank you to Professor Dannenberg for teaching me that. Another exercise that we did for the entire semester was that every day we had to keep a 2-page writing journal. We had to write 2 pages every single day as part of a journal. And that really was an amazing exercise that has stuck with me. I haven't continued it since those days, but I remember I would have nothing in particular to write about or nothing that I necessarily wanted to say, but I was looking at this blank piece of paper and I had to fill it with ink. So I just began to write, I'm supposed to fill this paper with ink, and I don't know what I should write, but I just need to fill the piece of paper with ink until I can write as many words as I can. This is an interesting thought process that I'm sitting here talking to myself in some meta way and blah, blah, blah. And the next thing I know, I'm 2/3 of the page in, and suddenly an idea starts to develop. And inevitably, by the time you get to the end of the second page, you've often come to some profound thought that you would have never have come to when you wrote the first few letters. So I want to just encourage anybody who's looking at a blank piece of paper, don't think of it as an intimidating prospect. Think of it as an opportunity and get going on it. Just start writing anything. Just get the pen to the paper or your fingers to the keyboard and start going. Anything. And before you know it, you'll come to something. Think of the blank paper as an opportunity and give yourself at least a couple of pages or a couple of paragraphs to just get cooking, because the only way you get to become a better cook is by continually cooking. They say that, writing is thinking. I have to clear my palette. I have to clear my mental writer's word palette inside my head to make room for the new words that are coming in right behind it. So it's quite easy for me to fill up this paper with ink because I think from this exercise that I did for a few months, maybe half a year. So yeah, I just want to encourage anybody who appreciates Tokyo Record Style for the writing. Some of you have said that. I really, really appreciate it because I really enjoy writing the stories that I write, and I really encourage when you guys read them and leave some comments. So just want to say that about the blank page. Don't be afraid of the blank page staring back at you. It's an opportunity. And without further ado, back to the stories. I'm going to read you some from Osaka Record Style edition. This is from May 4th of last year. I can't believe I just signed an original pressing of 3 Feet High and Rising. History. Vincent Lamont Mason Jr., a.k.a. Maceo, P.A., Pacemaster Mace, and Plug 3 of the one and only, you guessed it, De La Soul. White label test pressing bought for $2.99 from a random bookstore in Pennsylvania. Decades ago, according to whom the signature is addressed, DJ Yasushi of Groovenut Records in Amemura, American Village in Osaka. Good grief! Test press of one of the most important and influential albums in hip-hop history. Personally signed, no less. Talk about a treasure. For the Golden Week holiday in Japan, my family packed our bags, hopped on a Shinkansen bullet train, and headed out of Tokyo down the archipelago, with our first of many more stops being Tenka no Daidokoro, the nation's kitchen, aka Osaka, where we'd end up gorging ourselves on so many takoyaki, octopus balls, that I needn't have another until the next Golden Week. Being Japan's outgoing extrovert, Osaka is a well-established contributor to the nation's entertainment industry, with many of the top comedians, actors, and musicians hailing from the region, known for producing undeniably less shy characters than more reserved Tokyo. My daughter's current infatuation with one such musician and her quest to find some related goods unique to Osaka preoccupied her for an hour in Dotonbori's Tsutaya bookstore, during which time I dashed off to the concentrated cluster of record shops adjacent the area. First and closest stop being Groovenut. Super cool shop, stocked with all genres of music, with lots of soul, jazz, and hip-hop. With a quick introduction, shopkeep DJ Yasushi told me to call him Sushi, which gave me a chuckle. Smiles and stories were shared, and I got the abbreviated autobiography of how Yasushi got from punk to hip-hop, from clubbing to DJing, and how Groovenut got started. Somehow, we got to talking about meeting some of our heroes and them signing some of our favorite albums when he busted out some signed gems and this priceless copy of 3 Feet High and Rising and the story of getting it signed. What a tale to tell. Bottom line, Groovenut is groovy. Yasushi's a dude. I'll be back faux show. Peace out. Okay, the story of Groovenut and Yasushi. Continuing on. The second stop we have on the short Osaka record shop whirlwind was Timebomb Records, recommended by Yasushi from the previous post, where, after I explained being mostly a rock and roll head, he promised I'd find endless records to fiend over. He was right. A short walk from Groovenut, I found Timebomb in a downtown underground passage of sorts, and was getting a sense just from the shop signage, which mentioned R&R, oldies, R&B, soul, Beatles, Stones, garage, psych, punk, new wave, alt, indie pop, in a seemingly perfect sequential order. And all of the concert posters, a few pinup girls, a font that reminded me of a kind of haunted Halloween Frankenstein, it's alive typeface, think the Cramps, and a mascot character that could have been on the side of a Maui Wowie tiki bar cocktail mug, that this would be a regular haunt if I was an Osakan. Instantly mesmerized and sensory overloaded, as I opened the door, I recognized that this was likely a Disc Union caliber inventory, probably better, and maybe much better. And not some giant chain, definitely an indie store. I immediately pinpointed, then identified the shopkeeper, Mr. Kenji Kodama, and began to ask him about Timebomb, which he first explained started in 1990. Now, if you stop and think about record stores 33 years ago and deduce the state of records at that time and up until now, you'll be quick to realize it would take a mountain of passion to launch, cultivate, and continue all that time a shop like Timebomb. Kenji agreed to some photos and insisted he pose with a record. What record would this record shop owner choose? Bomb the Rocks, Early Days Singles, 1989 to 1996, by legendary rockers, the 5-6-7-8s. Wicked. I told Kenji that I was connected to the underground experimental space in Tokyo, Super Deluxe, and that the 5-6-7-8s had played a special birthday party that we hosted. Kenji lit up and said, I was there! Small world. Great to meet you, Kenji, and happy to have experienced Timebomb Records. No doubt I'll be back someday for some more Osaka Record Style. Okay. Nice. Okay, last one. This is Icksun. I'm hijacking this post after spotlighting Icksun, pictured here, who I met on the back streets of Amemura in Osaka, nearly equidistant from my home in Tokyo and his home in Seoul, Korea. Icksun was carrying a decent-sized stack of recently scored 12 inches down the street while I was drinking a zero beer, is what I like to call them. On the curb, watching people pass by while my son chewed on some gummies sitting next to me. The three of us had a friendly chat. Apollo dropped an annyeonghaseyo and an il-i-sam-sa-o. I dropped some compliments on his cool, undisclosed Korean band, hat with the letter H, and overall summer style. Icksun was very forthcoming about his travel plans in Japan, about his appreciation for the miniseries We Are Who We Are, about his love for house and disco. In his recommendation of Korean DJ and producer F-Fan, whose SoundCloud I fell asleep listening to last night, but he was quite secretive about the stack of records he scored. He was willing to show me two, but the rest were off limits. I gotta say, in a way, I respected that. Hope there were some gems in there, Icksun, and you better not tell your secrets to Big Mouth me. Okay, now the hijacking part. I want to send a shout out to the Unity Gang crew, DJs Ivy, Lion Dub, and Psychonaut. And to all the atmosphere and mood makers, Alayla, maybe Eliza, Ananda, Sunshine, not entirely sure who was part of the cast that came to make those events, and the sunset parties too, happen in the late 90s and early aughts back in Boulder. But you guys deepened my love for house, techno, dance, and dub. I'm not sure why a basic rock and roll hippie punk was ever compelled to elbow his way into that scene without really knowing a soul in it, but for whatever reason it shaped my love for music and bringing people together, which has inspired so many projects I've created or been a part of. Unity Gain was actually instrumental, no pun intended, in pushing me to photography. While I loved collecting records at the time, and though I DJ'd imaginary sets alone in my house, I never had the confidence until many years later to play sets. Nor did I feel confident to add to the collective art pieces that happened during the Unity Gains. I wanted to contribute, but I didn't really know how. But my camera became that way. I could sort of hide behind it and just be around, and I felt like I had a purpose to be there. Although I dare not share any of those photos as it was such low light in there and I never really knew how to operate a camera in that light at that time. Sadly, those photos are mostly junk. But so many good vibes came out of it, so not all is lost. Thank you, Unity Gain, legendary. And thank you, Icksun, for featuring some house music on Tokyo Record Style. Welcome anytime. Stay tuned for more Tokyo Record Style on the way. Okay, thank you for indulging me in another episode of Storytime Tokyo Tales from the streets of record collecting Japan. I really hope you enjoyed. I really love writing these stories, and it's a thrill and pleasure for me to be able to share them with you. If you liked what you heard, then please subscribe and follow me on Instagram, Tokyo Record Style, or follow me at tokyo.record.style on my homepage. And come to Tokyo. I'd love to meet you if you come here. I'd love to introduce you to the record culture here and the record-loving music scene. And so please don't hesitate to reach out. Okay, until next time, I will see you all at the record store. Bye.